As soon as you're ready.
Okay.
Okay. Rachel,
Yeah.
We'll start?
Sure. So based on what was presented this morning, where does bus electrification stand?
Yeah, so I think the capital document showed, we'll do more of this in November as well. Each month we'll iterate towards the 6-year program. We have bus procurement in the works to increase some electrification. We have 3 facilities we're working on, both Northern, Bladensburg, and Cinderbad. What the presentation was supposed to accomplish or show was that we don't have funding to do more than that. So we are going to need a very significant influx of funding to meet our goal, if that goal, quite frankly, is still even attainable based on the schedule. It's not just a metro issue, it's a national issue, not just on transit either. So on the transit side, it's just not enough manufacturing capacity, quite frankly, and the costs have gone up significantly. But on the electrification around the country, between AI data centers and personal automobiles, electrification, and everything else, all the cost of equipment around electrification around the country has just a very high escalation in demand on the workers and everything that do that. So we are going to be very constrained in our ability to move the zero emission program outside of what's currently in funded.
Well, I guess, yeah, what I'm asking is, even if you secure more funding generally, do you think it makes sense to put it towards that? Or is it just because of the supply chain issues and the expense, not as much of a priority as some of the other stuff you're talking about that needs funding?
Well, I think what we would present to the board on the 6-year plan is, one is the funding we have available, right? So until the funding solution happens, I don't want to say it's a moot point, but until that happens, we have to run the plan that we have. I think if we got more funding, I think from the staff side, a proposal to the board would be how to use that funding to move the most amount of people as efficiently as possible. So electrification on the fleet is certainly a noble goal, and it's something we should work for, but not at the expense of running safe, frequent, reliable service. And that's what we're trying to really highlight, which is I'd rather have 30 people on a diesel bus any day of the week than running a bus way less frequent with electric bus. And it's doing much more environmental positive impact for the region, even with the diesel bus. So that's, I think, as the chair mentioned on the dais, that trade-off conversation between the economics, the equity goals we have as a region, the climate goals. But again, we have to solve the funding even to get to the point in the conversation to say, how do you then allocate that funding?
Sorry if I missed this. Is there a dollar amount? Like, this is how much we would need for the full?
Well, in the deck, it talks about what's in the 25-year, then there's a 10-year, then there's the 6. So there's big, large buckets in there. I think come November, there's probably going to be even more granularity around those buckets. But we've had documents out there that show kind of the size, and like everything, honestly, the faster we do stuff, the less it costs. So the earlier we make decisions on our long-term funding, everything will become cheaper to get done.
Go ahead, if you have anything else.
The only other thing I had is the $3 million to open an hour earlier. Last board meeting, I think you guys announced that you saved, what, $28 million? Is that something you could just do if it's that relatively affordable?
Well, I'll say something, and I'll see if the chair wants to say something on that. So our actual savings last year were significant. So that's how we ended the year with a $28 million surplus. You may recall, we actually went into that year with $80 million in savings plus the year before. So last year, we actually saved about $114 million on top of about 100 that we saved the year before. So the 28 just ends up being the surplus at the end. Just giving that clarity. On the service part, I guess the answer from staff is, well, yes. So the board would have to do a budget amendment because the way service is like the unique thing in our budget process that the board has to give specific approval for, so fares and service. So if the board decided to do a budget amendment, we could implement that for the the December pick and implement as an example. Or if the board decided to do that, we'd really have to do it December or June because of the picks to get that done efficiently. So I'm not sure if
that summarizes where we are.
I was going to ask about weekend service as well, but that answers my question is, would it have to wait until July of next year when the new fiscal year starts, or would you be able to do it sooner?
We could do it. We could do it in December if the board did a budget amendment to do that. The staff would be able to execute that.
Who brings a budget amendment forward? How does that work? Is that something that you could do, or is that something that the whole board does?
I think a budget amendment I'd have to go through our bylaw. I think the budget amendment process would be a board member initiated process because, so the way it works is like the GM proposes a budget and then through the budget process, board members do amendments and end up with the final approach on the budget.
Okay. I know we might be getting ahead of ourselves here, but 24/7 Metro rail service, since we're on the topic, is that even something that you guys talk about right now when extending something just for 1 hour on a weekend day, Saturday and Sunday, would cost $3 million a year?
Yeah, I mean, we don't need a 24-hour rail system in this market. The cost benefit is not the case there. We have invested in a 24-hour bus network. We already run a lot of buses till 2, 3 in the morning, and some start at 5, so this was to fill that gap. I do think we probably need some other parts of the region running a 24-hour network that we don't have, specifically outside DC into some of the...
Bus or rail?
In bus.
Okay.
On the rail side, we have to get maintenance done. So this place was never built as a 3-track system. Everyone wants us to be compared to New York. It's a totally different market. They built three tracks everywhere, or 4 tracks everywhere to live local and express. We don't have that. We have to get maintenance done, and maintenance it's really complicated to get overnight maintenance done, and we got to squeeze every minute we can to keep the system running safe, and that's the priority. So, I think Tom showed on the slide, 50% more people travel between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. on the weekend than they do overnight. So we might get a lot of Twitter people that go, oh, why don't you stay open later? And I get that because that's the audience on Twitter, younger and late night and talking about that. But from an actual regional benefit on equity, economic, climate, access, the morning is definitely more. I think after that, longer term, as we can squeeze out better maintenance efficiency, probably trying to work towards a Friday, Saturday, maybe potentially 1 hour later. But that would be really kind of, I think, in our mind, where from a staff point of view, the most efficient use of the dollars. Quite frankly, that presentation showed where we have gaps right now. We have a lot of people north of Shaw, between Shaw and Greenbelt, that don't get enough service. And if they don't get enough service today, let alone next year, if ridership goes up, what are we going to do? So we need to figure out how to use our train fleet and staff as efficiently as possible to drive as many customer trips, because the more trips mean the region performs better.
I don't know if you've been...
I don't care if you have any else to... No, okay.
Good.
Yeah, good.
Kind of turning the page here and talking about the election, which I know we're not going to talk politics here, but I'm sure that you're aware that discussions are being had at the city level about what to do on election day and inauguration day and the period in between both of them. Protests don't really happen in metro stations, but do you guys have any plan in place if there is some sort of outbreak in political violence or civil unrest? Could that affect the transit system at all, the rail system or the bus system, and how people who are not involved in those protests get around?
Sure, we're heavily connected, as I mentioned in the presentation, with all of our regional partners, whether it's Secret Service, Capitol Police, FBI, MPD, all of our other local partners. It's something we do on a daily basis. So it's not just like, every 4 years we're like, hey, who are you, and try to coordinate. This is done on a daily basis. We have a deputy chief in special operations that is one of, under his portfolio, that's very coordinated. We have members of our team that have a lot of secret clearance that are involved in a lot of things. We have lots of special operations here at Metro, whether it's bomb canines to SWAT to all of those types of coordinated activities. The point I want to bring out is we are prepared as best as Metro can be. If there is a big protest, as an example, again, we're going for peaceful, right? But assume even with peaceful protests, sometimes we might shut down an entrance just because of crowd control and meter people into stations. We do that on July 4th at Smithsonian as an example. We will definitely do that at inauguration because of crowd management. If there is more, if you will, unrest slash just, more disturbances, we might proactively close a station entrance. We're not going to lose our station and the integrity of the rail system to a protest. So that is something we got to be able to function and get people around the system. And so we're open to anyone of any affiliation. We just want peaceful and safe operations is what we're after. So heavy coordination.
Yeah, the point is Metro is prepared. So
yeah, as best as we can based on known information. So.
Do you have anything else?
You brought up Shaw to Greenbelt. So are you saying the idea is to put more turnarounds on some of those less used branches but stop doing the turnaround at Mount Vernon?
So this is a multi-month process here to get the general manager's proposed budget, which I'll deliver to the board in December for their consideration. Ultimately, the board will consider and then adopt a final budget. What we're trying to show here is, regardless of what the past was, 1995 or 2018, here is the way this region moves today, and we need to be more nimble, more agile, more flexible today, and 2 years from now, and 10 years from now. So we have X amount of rail cars, X amount of stations, and X amount of turnaround areas, and X amount of staff. I've heard loud and clear since the day I got here, I think the Post has covered it in depth, people want us to be incredibly cost efficient and move the most amount of people. Everyone says to me, how you gain the ridership back and how you managing costs. We are showing areas where, in our opinion, there's probably more capacity than demand, and other areas where there's more demand and not enough capacity. And I think you're going to see in November, first we want to show the analysis work, right? Because we want to be, again, my job is not to be political at all, right? My job is to run this organization with the strategic and policies that the board set up to be as most efficient to move people. And I think the data, we need to be a data-driven organization, and the data is showing where we need to run more service to connect more people to the system. And that's what we're really focused on. So, you mentioned early on Saturday, Sunday morning, it's clear to us from a staff data point of view, that is something we should be doing. It's clear to us we need to have more service above Mount Vernon, north. And so whether that means the yellow line, goes back, which used to happen, or if we did more green line service, there's a variety of ways to do that. At the same time, I think the slide's clear. There's probably more service going to Largo than is needed for that demand. On the red line between Grosvenor and Silver Spring, we're leaving people, someone complained to me today, they got left on a platform. We don't have enough service in that area. So this is all about, again, how to use the train sets and the people as efficient as possible.
One more. The lift subsidy that is coming to an end a week from today. You had some people come today voicing their opinions about it. The docs that I got show that 838 people are currently a part of this program. Most people said it was less about the fact that they get a $9 discount on the lift than the fact that, hey, they don't have to maybe walk 4 or 5 blocks from their restaurant or their entertainment job at night, potentially wait 20, 30 minutes for a bus, and then have that bus drop them off, a quarter of a mile away from their house. It seems like it's a done deal with Metro. That service is going away because you're saying we have fixed the problem with 24/7 bus service on 14 highly used routes, correct?
Yeah, so I think we shared with you the memo that the staff provided to the board. We understand that people, anytime you have something and it changes, that's hard for people, and we empathize with that. I think this program was really set up originally around the change of hours of Metro. There was no 24-hour bus service. There's a variety of other factors. So we've worked very hard. I want to thank the mayor and the council. They've invested in late-night bus service in DC. It's performing well. It was needed all along, and I'm glad that we now have that. And quite frankly, again, outside of the core of DC, arguably you could suggest we need a little bit more of that. When I've looked at the data, I think it's about 130 people have used almost 70% of the trips. So, it's a very small amount of people. Again, for 24 or 28 straight months I've been here, every single month has been use every dollar as efficiently as possible. So, in one way you could argue this subsidy program is paying Lyft to compete with the actual bus service that we are funding. That's one way to kind of possibly look at it. Secondarily, we've invested significantly in safety. So we have more police overnight than we've ever had on the bus system, including the 24-hour bus system. So we're doing everything we can in this, this region to move people and move them safe as possible. But that's not to suggest other partners, both private or public, may not have other ideas or opportunities to help their workers. Ultimately, right, we don't do specific things for every individual worker. We are a regional mass system trying to move as many people as efficiently as possible. So, again, we empathize with those individuals, but that's kind of the mandate of the organization we're trying to work through. Hopefully I said that,
yes,
Chair. Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
Oh, I did have one more.
Okay.
Circulator, how are there still any sort of negotiations, discussions going on about bringing on those workers? Has anything changed? I know the union put out like a fairly aggressive statement about a week ago.
Yeah, fairly aggressive. Yeah, that's an understatement. Yeah, I mean, completely, uncalled for. But needless to say, there's been conversations about that statement as well. So, and I got an apology related to that. So, take that out of the equation. I keep going back to, we are not taking over the Circulator. And I know you know that, but I think that's still lost largely on the public. Circulator is going away. We are hiring people. I think the last I heard, we have about 75, give or take. Could be 78, could be 80, could be 67, but it just go around 70, 75 people that work at Circulator that have either left Circulator or will leave Circulator, applied to work for us. They are either have got an offer, or I think some have either started training or starting training at the end of this month. So that is that piece. So there's no negotiation related to that. The union has asked us directly if we'd be willing to accept seniority. We've had conversations with that. Quite frankly, that's really a financial issue that we would need the district to solve in many ways, because we can't take that liability, because otherwise we would just hire people at the starting rate. So that's something we've had some conversations with the district about, and I don't have a final resolution on that. But again, that Metro, in a lot of ways, this is all going to get triangulated into Metro, and we are following our collective bargaining agreement, and we are trying to always hire quality staff that want to drive our mission, but there's other nuances that are not Metro specific.